When you think about the stages of making an illustration, you can really break it down into sections. And as artists, we tend to execute them in the same medium, an exclusive workflow. Whether it's Procreate, Clip Studio, or traditional media, each medium usually provides all we need to create a complete illustration. They each have their strengths and weaknesses. And as artists, we're not married to a single medium. We have the freedom to jump between them. So what if we use them all? What if we switched mediums with every stage, creating a hybrid workflow? Today, I'm gonna do just that, making this drawing using a hybrid digital and traditional workflow. Let's get to it. What is up, folks? Andrew here, and welcome to Comic Booker, all things comics from a creator. So a few videos ago, I talked about doing this X-Men drawing series as kind of a personal drawing challenge. And while a few X drawings were done purely traditionally or digitally, most were created in a hybrid workflow. I penciled and inked these with Microns on Bristol board, scanned them in, and executed final colors using the Procreate app on the iPad. Here and there, I like to play around with workflows, just to test what works best for me. You never know when you'll discover a new technique. The industry standard is digital colors over traditional inks, but there are all sorts of ways to approach comics these days. Personally, I've found that switching up my mediums keeps the art-making process fresh. Today I'm thinking, what if I did my pencils all in Procreate, printed it out to ink it traditionally, scanned it in the Clip Studio for some cleanup and renders, then threw it back into Procreate for final colors. Does that sound like a bit of overkill? I think it does, but let's try it. Okay, so starting off in Procreate, I'm doing a very loose gestural sketch that blocks in all the major elements in the composition. The reason I'm using Procreate for this stage is because it's the program I like to sketch in the most. I've trained myself to use the tap-to-switch function of the Apple Pencil to quickly jump back and forth from pencil and eraser, which gives me a good flow when sketching. Once the gesture is done, I start tightening up the drawing, paying attention to the general proportions and anatomy. Using the selection tools, I can easily resize various parts to my liking, which is very useful when adjusting proportions. My biggest concern here is structure, and I'm not too worried about line quality or finish. If the base drawing is sound, then the rest of the process is going to go more smoothly. When I'm ready, I print it out in A3 paper and throw it onto my drawing table. Now for inks. I'm using my favorite inking tools for this one, Microns. They come in all sizes, but what I like is that they give me a very stable, solid line, allowing me to precisely control the line weight of the piece. I try to have a variety of line weights in any linear image I make because it keeps the eye engaged as I take in the drawing. I reserve thick lines for contours and foreground elements and use thinner lines for details and hatching. One big advantage of inking traditionally is that it makes the drawing feel very human and genuine. The friction of the paper, the slight wobble of the ink line, the micro bleeds, and overall tactile engagement create an effect that is very hard to replicate digitally. I think it's because traditional tools have a wider error margin, and so the humanity of the artist comes through in the lines. Digital brushes, for all their advancements in recent years, can sometimes feel too slick and perfect. Okay, we're ready to move on to Clip Studio. Scanning is pretty straightforward. I set it to 600 dpi for maximum crispiness. Once it's done, that image is sent over to Clip Studio for some post-processing. Alright, now we're in Clip Studio, and the first thing I'm going to do is isolate the line work. This is one of several things that Clip Studio can do better and faster than Procreate. I select all the black lines in the image and duplicate them onto a separate layer, which I then alpha lock. Now I can color under the lines without a problem. I can also throw a clipping mask on top of the line layer and do a color hold, changing the black lines into whatever color I need. The next thing I'm gonna do is access Clip Studio's excellent texture library and start throwing in some tone. This mimics traditional screen tones that manga artists use to get gradients and other effects. I'm not gonna go crazy with these, but I want tone in places to create a nice gradiating effect. Lastly, I'm going to use Clip Studio's auto color feature to create a layer of AI-generated color. I really like this feature because it adds a layer of extra value variation that I can use lightly in the final piece. Now that I have all the layers I need organized the way I want, it's time to port it over to Procreate. I export the piece in PSD format, which is compatible with Procreate, and then jump over to that program. And now we're back where we began, but with much more to work with. I now have an excellent traditionally inked line work layer, some tones, and AI colors from Clip Studio, and my line work is nicely isolated for coloring. They're all organized in layers that I can easily navigate in Procreate. I do basic color flats to create big blocks of general color, and then I go to town on renders. This is the loosest and most fun part of the process. Now that almost everything is structurally in place, I'm free to focus on the feel of the image, adding and removing colors in response to the established lines and tones, mixing and remixing the piece like a musical track. Honestly, I could do this part forever, but the video's already going a bit long, so I'm gonna keep it tight. I do some color holds, play around with blend modes, and let the final image form up before my eyes until we're done. And here's the final image. Well, that was interesting, right? I had a lot of fun with this workflow, but I'm curious, what's your current workflow? Hit me up in the comments and let's talk process. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.